Today is an opportunity to go beyond brochures, rankings, and course outlines and step into real conversation with real minds behind the learning experience. At the University of Manchester, education has never just been about knowledge. It's about perspective, challenge, and transformation. And today, you're not just hearing about the program, you're meeting the people who shaped it. The academics joining us are not only the experts in their fields, they are researchers, industry collaborators, and mentors who are actively influencing the way business and society evolve. This is your chance to hear directly from them how they think, how they teach, and what to expect from future leaders sitting in sessions just like this. Welcome to Meet the Academics. My name is Joseph Ranyola. It is an absolute pleasure to be hosting what a truly, I believe, is another milestone in the making. Because today we get the unique opportunity to connect directly with the faculty who shape the learning experience and inspire the journey ahead. But before we start, let's take a moment to discover the University of Manchester not only as a university but a vibrant city, a leading academic institution, and a global community driving innovation, ideas, and meaningful impact worldwide. Driven by a commitment to our world class research, exceptional teaching and learning, and a deep sense of social responsibility, the University of Manchester carries a legacy of excellence that goes far beyond education, a legacy of shaping the world we live in today. As a proud member of the Russell Group and one of the UK's largest and most distinguished institutions, its story began in 1824, marking over 200 years of meaningful impact and progress. It is home to 26 Nobel Prize winners and to pioneering discoveries that have changed history from unlocking the atom to the revolutionary isolation of graphene. Today, that legacy continues to earn global recognition, consistently ranked among the leading university in the UK, across Europe, and worldwide. In the world of business education, its MBA stands amongst the very best, holding triple accreditation from AMBA, ACSB, and EQUIS, placing it within the top 1% of business schools globally. But beyond rankings, recognition, and accolades, what truly defines Manchester is its dedication to shaping individuals who don't simply respond to change, but lead it. The University of Manchester also has consistently set the standard in global higher education, not only through academic excellence, but through meaningful real world impact. Since these global rankings were first introduced in 2019, Manchester has remained a standout performer. In fact, it is the only university in the world to have ranked within the top 10 every single year. And as of April 26, that position remains unchanged, ranked first in the UK, first in Europe, and second globally, a true reflection of a long standing commitment to driving positive and social and environmental change on a global scale. Here in the Middle East, the University of Manchester established its presence in Dubai Knowledge Park in 2006. And today, we're proudly mark the 20 years of excellence of Stronger Together. Our community reflects true global diversity, bringing together over 112 nationalities with over than 3,700 students supported, 2,600 plus graduates, and a growing alumni network of over 5,000 professionals across the region. As the largest and fastest growing international hub within the Alliance Manchester Business Schools Global Network, we are part of a powerful international presence spanning cities like our home in Manchester, Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Singapore. We offer a portfolio of part-time programs from MSc Financial Management, MA Educational Leadership and Practice, to the Global MBA, Global Executive MBA, and Executive Education, designed to support professionals at every single stage of their journey. And yes, most recently, the University of Manchester Dubai reached a major milestone, securing institutionalized licensure from the UAE Ministry of Higher Education, along with full program accreditation, a strong testament to our continued commitment to excellence. Now, this is the time that we're all waiting for. now it's time to meet our academics. So please, later on, save your questions for them. As I introduce them to you later on, you can use the chat box for your questions, and we would love to answer that for you. All right, let's introduce them now. First off, he's a senior lecturer in financial decision making at Alliance Manchester Business School. He teaches corporate finance and financial strategy, combining academic expertise with practical insights to support data driven decision making in business. He is also the Associate Director of Teaching and Learning of the University of Manchester, Dubai. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Amin El-Kholy. Amin?
Hello, everyone. Jocelyn, I don't know if you want me to do a quick intro or just to say hello and be
Just say
around
hi, hello
later
for
for
now,
questions.
doctor. We'll save the
Hello,
question.
everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Amin. Our next guest is a senior lecturer in leadership and organizational studies at Alliance Manchester Business School. She specializes in leadership development, organizational behavior, and responsible management. Her work focuses on how individuals and organizations can lead effectively in dynamic and diverse environments with the particular interest in ethics, inclusion, and sustainable leadership practices. She is also the Associate Director of Research at the University of Manchester, Dubai. Please help me welcome Nada Miseki Jammoul. Nada, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Jocelyn, for the introduction, and looking forward to meeting everyone.
My pleasure, Nada. Thank you. Next in line is a senior lecturer in management sciences at the Alliance Manchester Business School. His expertise lies in operations management, analytics, and decision sciences. He works closely with professionals and organizations to apply quantitative and analytical approach to improve business performance and operational efficiency. Please welcome Dr. Tahir Abbas Syed. Doctor?
Thank you so much, Hazen. Look forward to the session and meeting everybody. Thank you so much for the invite and the introduction.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Our next guest is the Associate Professor of Marketing, specializing in AI, digital transformation, and innovation at Alliance Manchester Business School. His research and teaching focuses on how organizations leverage emerging technologies and data-driven strategies to drive innovation and competitive advantage. He is actively engaged in executive education and works with organizations to navigate digital transformation and rapidly evolving markets. Please welcome Ghasem Zaefarian. Ghasem? Good evening. Okay, ma'am, Ghasem, I think you're on mute. Yeah, there we go.
Yes, hello everyone, and thanks for the introduction, Jason. Hello everyone, and welcome.
Thank you, Ghasem. And if you're a student or an alumni or a part of the community of the University of Manchester, Dubai, you may know him already. He's the Global MBA Program Director at Alliance Manchester Business School. He brings extensive international experience in business, education, and leadership development, overseeing the delivery of the Manchester Global MBA across multiple global centers. His work focuses on developing responsible leaders equipped to navigate complex global business environments with a strong emphasis on strategy, innovation, and real-world application. Please welcome Xavier Duran.
Thanks,
hello, Xavier.
Thanks, Jocelyn, and indeed, hello to everybody, and always a pleasure to be in great company. So, salam alaikum.
Thank you, Xavier. All right, let me stop sharing now so I can see everybody in my screen. So what we're going to do is that we have like a couple of questions prepared for everybody, and I would love to ask that for you guys. Hold on, let me ask the first question to Dr. Amin, of course. Dr. Amin, in terms of what you're teaching right now, what separates good financial decisions from great ones in high pressure environments?
Thanks, Jocelyn. So it's an interesting question. I don't know if it's you or Husam who came up with it, but let me do something slightly different here. When you ask that question, you give the impression of an environment that looks something probably like this. Is that what you had in mind?
Okay.
I don't know. Let me actually accept that. Did you see that?
I can see a glimpse of it, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So there you see all these crazy traders looking at screens and so on. Okay, well, let me tell you one thing. Financial decision making is something that people do on a personal level, companies do when they decide to expand into new markets. Often we have the image of just this crazy people trying to make investments and the rest of it. The reality is very different from that. The reality is that you basically do a lot of preparation, and it's something that happens almost every day, even when you come to buy something. So aside from the image behind you, and yes, I used to be a fund manager, but we didn't do this crazy trading stuff on the trading floor. We took time to decide what to invest in, and we made investments. Now, there are two ways of looking at a great versus a good financial decision. One is purely how much money it made. You can say, okay, look, I did this and it made money. Problem is that's the wrong way to look at it. What we really teach, and what's very important to recognize also in practice, is the process. If you're going to make financial decisions repeatedly, it's the process and the reasoning that goes into it that guarantees overall that in the long term you get good outcomes. So you could say, well, if I made more money than somebody else starting with the same amount by making investment decisions, then okay, yeah, that's the right answer. In reality, what guarantees that is the process you go through and how much forethought you put into it. And rarely it's under pressure. You need to take time to analyze as much as possible. But I would say if you're going to, there's no guaranteed way to make great investment decisions every time. The reality is if you get more than 50% of them right in the long term, you're going to do well. But the trick is to make sure your process is correct, not look at a couple of times you got lucky and say, hey, that was a great decision. I hope that answers both parts of the question.
Yes, it did. Thank you, Dr. Amin. All right. Let's now go to the topic of leadership, which is Dr. Nada's expertise. What defines authentic leadership in today's workplace, Dr. Nada?
Thank you. Thank you, Josen. So what defines authentic leadership is not just being yourself. It's not even being vulnerable. In my opinion, is four different things. And I would start by consistency, and consistency between what you say you are and who you truly are. So you can't, a leader cannot say, I invest in people, I value human relationship, and then they put pressure on people. They don't value, where they're coming from, their struggle, the work-life balance. Second, which in my opinion is really important, is this starting with self-awareness, like knowing yourself as a person. What are your values and what are your blind spots? Because you cannot lead others before you know yourself and you can lead yourself. Third, and that's based on my background as an auditor, is transparency. And transparency in everything we do, in communication, in the way we deal with people, in the way we manage relationships. And fourth is the internal moral compass, the integrity that is the foundation of everything. And I want to share, because I just finished leading two workshops. Unfortunately, we had to do them online. We had to adapt.
Yeah.
But I was really impressed with some of the comments I heard from the student. And I quote one which was particularly interesting. And he said, I thought before I started this workshop that I knew how to lead my team. I gave them, clear instruction. I knew what every one of them need to do. And after I finished this workshop, it made me rethink everything. It made me look at my team as different people with different needs, with different aspirations. And now I have to change the way I manage my team. And I thought this really sums up what we're trying to do in this course and in this MBA program.
Absolutely, Dr. Dr. Just a follow-up question on what you mentioned. If that's the case, can authenticity ever be a weakness in leadership, especially in high-pressure corporate settings?
In my opinion, no.
Okay.
Authenticity and empathy always wins.
All right. Perfect. Thanks for that, Dr. Nada. Let's go now to Tahir, of course, Dr. Tahir. What makes a great decision maker in complex business environments?
Thank you so much, Josen. So for me, a great decision maker in a complex environment would be someone who can make sound judgments with limited information. So the important element to understand when we talk about a complex environment, it would be a bit different, mainly because when we talk about complex environment, we are talking about environments where there might be competing interest, there might be pressures from different stakeholders, there might be lots of uncertainty. So what really matters over here is for a decision maker to bring structure to these kind of environment, to understand what are the key areas or the core issues that they need to identify, and that would maximize the impact of their decision. And in doing so, I think the great decision maker are the ones who can balance the short-term effect as well as the long-term implications of their decisions. So generally, when you may have a really good decision to solve the immediate issue. However, in the longer run, this may create wider operational, and we often see ethical issues arising from such a decision. So overall, I would say great decision maker is the one who can combine this analytical thinking into identifying the right areas, prioritizing them, and coming up with a balanced approach.
Okay. Just a follow up with Dr. Tur. Then, if that's the case, what role does uncertainty play, and how should leaders respond when there's no clear answer?
So yes, that's a good question. I think usually we rely on the data a lot, but you see data may have many limitations. So which means in many cases you will see data is essentially what we can measure, how we measure it, and through what systems we are generating that data. So these are the limitations with which we are working in real life as well. So I think your experience that can play a lot of significance in coming up with the right attitude towards taking the decision. And also, I think with a great leader, you are looking to take the responsibility of such decisions and the consequences.
All right. Thanks for that, Dr. Tahir. And now, in the world of IT, or let's say in AI, I would say to Ghasem, how is AI redefining marketing, and what should professionals do now to stay relevant?
Well, I think that is what I call the $1 million question. And all right, let me just try to give to give it my best shot. Uh, Generally, I don't think that AI is removing the need for marketers and managers. If anything, it's really shifting their value away from routine sort of production towards better judgment, deeper customer understanding, and more effective orchestrations of the tools that they have at their hand. And so, in answering this question, in my view, I think we first should ask a more important question. That is, what is it exactly that is changing with the emergence of AI? And I think, in my view, AI is totally redefining marketing in three different ways, from content production to content intelligence, from mass campaigns to personalized conversations, and from functional silos to integrated decisions based on data that we now have abundance at our hand. So I think AI is making marketing faster, much faster. Teams can generate, test, and refine content and campaign much more quickly, and it's really moving marketing away from a one-way campaign towards more of a personalized conversational engagement. And so it's really forcing firms to connect marketing much more closely with data, with sales, services, and customer experience overall. Now, we also need to ask ourselves, okay, if that's the case, so moving forward, what remains human then? Should we just give up our hands and say that, okay, here you go, AI, and it's all yours now? In my opinion, I think AI can accelerate execution, but we can still make a difference in terms of defining a strategy, in terms of understanding the context, in terms of interpreting the insights, and also making ethical and brand sensitive sort of decisions. If you look at the World Economic Forum's 2025 report, they emphasized a lot on two important emerging skill set, and that is AI and big data. But they also really emphasize at the same time on many important skills that are reminding us that are also important, like, for example, analytical thinking, creative thinking, resilience, and lifelong learning. So these are the skills that we as humans can still have. And so the real question, I think, that I guess, we all should be asking ourselves, or we should be interested to know the answer of, is that what should we, or what should you do as a professional now that AI is here with us? Well, I think what you should do now is to become fluent in AI, improve your analytical and data capabilities, as well as decision-making skills, and I guess most importantly, protect and build on your human skills such as judgment, creativity, empathy, and strategic thinking. These are the kind of skills that AI cannot replace, at least not really easily. I think you're muted, Jason.
Sorry for that. So I want to ask just a follow up on that, Ghasem. If that's the case, how can businesses now avoid over reliance on AI and still think strategically?
Yeah. Well, I guess that's a really important question. I think, how firms should avoid, or how managers within firms should avoid on over relying on AI, is that reminding themselves that AI are trained on the basis of the human data. And there's always, as a human, we are naturally biased species. And so all the data that we previously produced are kind of biased. And so we train our models on the basis of biased data. And when you have trained your models on the basis of biased data, you can't expect far better results than biased outcome as well. So that really means that you can't blindly go into AI using AI and confidently without checking and rechecking. So you really, really, really need to have that element of human in the loop to ensure that whatever that you are coming up with the AI modeling are really relevant, are really unbiased, and are accurate as well. Therefore, I would say that it's not about using AI. It's about really working together with AI. And if just in one sentence I want to put everything together, I would say that we need to really use AI as a co-pilot, not as a autopilot.
All right. We'll take a note of that, Ghasem. Thanks for that. All right, now to, of course, savor the answer. In today's fast-changing world, what kind of leaders are organizations really looking for, and how does the MBA shape them?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question, and perhaps one that links to some of the topics that Nada already covered, really. But from our discussions with employers and even with our own students and graduates who invariably come from the corporate world, organizations are not really looking for for leaders really that will have all the answers as they may have done in the past. Instead, they're actually looking for leaders that can navigate, actually not just navigate, but that can perhaps thrive in a context of uncertainty and ambiguity. Also leaders that will be able to learn continuously. And perhaps most importantly, leaders that through their charisma, through their own capabilities, will be able to bring people together with them through periods of significant change. And in that sense, what organizations are looking for really are for many of the elements that the MBA ultimately is trying to teach its graduates. It's looking for agility, it's looking for adaptability, it's looking for versatility, really. But it's also looking for good judgment and decision making. Notice that there are keywords that many of my colleagues, certainly Ghasem, in the context of an era of AI, has actually been speaking about quite a bit. And ultimately, organizations, I think, are also looking for human and ethical, and indeed as well, another made this point very eloquently, I think, authentic leadership, that very, very important. And the way we actually do it in the MBA is perhaps by placing the focus not so much only on the content and the curricular elements that we teach our students, but on the skills that we tend to try to build on our students and on our graduates. Certainly the MBA is all about mindset. mindset, perspective, being exposed to the diversity of students that will be with you in a class, coming from different functions, coming from different industries, coming from different professional backgrounds, that exposure as well to different cultures and to different types of technology. At the end of the day, it's about just trying to look at the full picture and looking at the organization as a system, I would say, rather than looking at it as a collection of silos or compartments or departments, however you might want to call them.
All right. I just want to connect it to the AI part, Saver. I just want to have a follow-up question on that. As AI reshape industries now, how does the MBA remain relevant now and even more essential for future leaders?
Yeah, actually, that's a very good question. And again, I get to suppose for being the last of the speakers in the panel, I get to connect it to my fellow panelists, which is
That's
always
the
a
plan.
benefit. So yeah, I think I connected quite nicely to again many of the issues that Ghasem spoke about. I think at the end of the day, AI really emphasizes the role of human orchestration, as he spoke about. This is very, very important. And in that sense, I would say that the MBA is becoming not less essential, but quite the opposite, even more essential. Absolutely, absolutely important. At the end of the day, AI might well change what is expected of leaders within organizations or within business generally. But it also really raises the importance of the how those leaders are actually going about making decisions, their judgment, the way they're actually thinking, and so on. So again, just to perhaps echo some of the things and words that Ghasem was speaking about, judgment, an incredibly important one. The fact that AI amplifies the value of judgment, and indeed judgment is at the very, very, very heart of what an MBA is about, how you go about making better decisions, how you use your intuition, your experience, and how you actually blend it with the different frameworks, theories, with the different models that you've been exposed to, and concoct those to be able to make better decisions, really. But the MBA also, and this is actually quite important for everybody to be reminded of, the MBA will equip people to work with AI rather than assuming that people will be replaced by AI. Again, just touching upon some of those themes that Ghasem was speaking about. I think quite importantly as well, AI increases the premium on leadership. So if perhaps knowledge becomes more and more a commodity and is freely available, then perhaps leadership becomes a more precious commodity. And this is, again, at the very, very heart of what an MBA is about. And I think ultimately, and also quite importantly, if AI is to generate unprecedented change, as we continuously hear, then of course the MBA stands a very, very good chance at placing any graduate at the very heart of that revolution. The MBA equips you with that ability, again, to be adaptable, to be agile, to be versatile, and to navigate, and as I said earlier, to thrive in that environment characterized by change and uncertainty.
All right. Thank you, Xavier. That concludes our round one of questions to everyone. I would like to encourage everybody, if you have any questions for our panelists, please do so. You can use the chat box, or we can unmute you if you want to speak and ask a question directly to our guest panelists. All right, going back to Nada. Dr. Nada, how can leaders build cultures that truly engage and empower people?
Thank you, Jocelyn. Culture is one of my favorite topic to talk about. Actually, I want to start by saying what culture is not what culture is. So culture is definitely not what's written in the mission statement, not what companies claim they are. It's really what gets tolerated, what behavior gets tolerated or not, and what gets rewarded. So that's what sums up culture. It's the true purpose of the organization. And if you want, organization to create a culture where people thrive, where people can do their best, you need to create that environment. It's everything that Xavier talked about, that Ghasem, and everyone. It's bring this all together, and what environment you need to have in an organization that would allow everything we talked about: the adoption of AI, ethical leadership, good teamwork, people to, bring their whole self to work and come and perform and outperform. This is what culture is all about. And it's not an easy concept to point to. It's not an easy concept to implement, but it really starts with the right values, with leadership promoting those values day in, day out, and doing it very consistently. That's the true core of everything we were talking about. And during the course we talk about what good cultures are, what bad culture. And I gave the example, one of my favorite examples is Wells Fargo. It's one a huge bank in the US. And if you read their mission statement, it was all about integrity, ethics, and customer first. And what they actually did is the complete opposite. They actually went and created 2 million, more than 2 million fake accounts. So they had the right mission statement, the right vision, everything, but the culture incentivized the wrong behavior, which led to very bad behavior. And we also have really good culture, and we see how those culture in a very fast moving environment, in AI, in transformation, in the unrest that we are all facing, what good culture can create in terms of environment where people can still lead and can still innovate.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Nada, for that. Tahir, let me ask you this question, please. Doctor, how can managers balance data, intuition, and experience when making decisions?
Thank you so much, Justin. I think the key is that data, intuition, and experience, they should be seen not competing with one another, but they should be seen as working together. So they should be augmenting each other. So let's talk about each, like for example, data. Data can help you give structure to understand patterns, identify trends, compare options, and also maybe challenge assumptions at time. However, as we were discussing, the data always come from humans and there might be biases, and it may not always be complete. And that's where your experience becomes highly relevant. So when we say experience helps you to contextualize that findings from the data and put into the context in which you are required to make a decision. So for example, would this essentially work in the operations where you are trying to implement these decisions? So what kind of challenging, what kind of data points are missing, how we can compensate for that. And at the same time, intuition is something that also plays a key role in augmenting that. For example, where we don't have, where the data is incomplete, where we've been talking about the complex environment, the uncertain environment. And I think where the evidence is incomplete, that's where your intuition can be very, very helpful. But when we say intuition, please do not, it doesn't mean like it's a guesswork, not really that. So intuition is usually informed by, we can say, deep experience and even reflection. And most of the nowadays assessments, even in the universities that we really focus on, is reflective learning. And that's the skill we really want managers and leaders to develop in order to make those great decisions and bring their intuition into play along with data and experience. So I think in practice, managers should start with data, then use experience to interpret. And then if there are gaps, that's where intuition carefully can fulfill that gap to complete the understanding and come up with a final outcome.
But just to follow up on that, Dr. Chair, what do you think can managers ensure now in terms of decisions that could remain unbiased when using both data and intuition?
Yes, that's so true. And that's really hard, to be honest. The biasness in the data is embedded, and it comes naturally as well as humans when we are making decision. So I think understanding the complete information coming from different angles, and I think over here your teamwork is very important, where you understand the perspectives of others and differing opinions. Taking all this into account can help you come up with a more balanced approach in your outcomes.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Tahir. Dr. Amin, coming back to you, and going back to the world of finance, how can professionals develop confidence in making high stakes decisions?
So I'd like to go back to touch upon something each of our panelists said. The question is saying, okay, what can we do? How can we learn? How can we improve our decision making? What can we arm ourselves with? Well, I go back to this thing that was mentioned multiple times. In business, you're always making decisions with uncertainty. You don't have all the facts. You have to work with what you have. So then the combination of data and intuition allows you to have judgment. You will have to have judgment to be able to make decisions. They will never have certainty. It's a probability. So that combination is important. And the other thing I want to warn against in a way also is constantly keeping an eye on the balance. So I don't know if people have heard of this idea of the Dunning-Kruger effect. And people learn about something to start with a little bit of knowledge, their level of confidence is very high. And then as they learn more and more about something, they realize they don't know that much. So their level of confidence drops. And with time and experience, they start being better at it. I would caution against overconfidence. The best fund managers I've worked with are people who constantly question, what have I missed? What have I not done? What do I not know? And self-awareness is something that I mentioned as well. Knowing your own blind spots, knowing your team, knowing the diversity of opinion and allowing it to be able to have people cover for your blind spots is very important. So yes, arm yourself with data, with practice. And that's why it's not just learning, it's practice, something very much emphasized in the MBA. Case studies, example, time, experience. That's why you can't just sign up for the MBA having just graduated. You need to bring what you've learned in the real world. So between learning and practice and experience, you're able to achieve that. And the really important thing is don't become overconfident. That's important. Always find diversity of opinions and views to help you stay on course.
Dr. Amin, just a little bit of a challenge here, a follow-up for me. How do you think you can recover? How do you recover in confidence after making a poor decision?
Learning, because the only way you learn is by making mistakes. Realistically, experience comes when you bump into things, not when you get things right. The leaders who got things right 100% of the time, the first 5 times they tried it, they're the ones to watch out for. Because from a small sample, they assume they know what the secret formula is until they hit something they didn't expect. If somebody comes to me for a business idea, having failed 7 times, and they're trying the 8th time, I have more confidence in what they're saying than somebody who's had 2 things work, and the 3rd time they're very confident they know what they're doing. Use it as a learning opportunity. That is the key factor. You only learn from your mistakes and those of others. If you are introspective and if you look at what they're doing and reflect, then that's the best way to go.
And if someone's going to ask you, what advice would you give to early career professionals facing high stakes choices at this time?
Learn, prepare as much as you can, and expect to make mistakes. You will make mistakes. Try to make sure that the impact of them is minimized if you can, but mistakes has come as part of the territory. And every time you make a mistake, use it as a learning experience. That's the best advice I can give.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Amin. Ghasem, back to you, sir. How can students practically apply AI and digital tools in their day-to-day work?
Ooh, that's a really tough question and very controversial as well, I have to say. Well, I think I think you can apply AI very practically in your everyday work. Before you start a task, you can use it, for instance, to scan the literature, summarize readings, and generate probably some possible approaches. It can also, help you get up to speed more quickly, get on with the topic and understand it perfectly, especially when you are dealing with some sort of new topic. a large volume of material to handle, or a very tight deadline. So while doing the task, I think you can also use AI to help you better draft the content, better structure your presentations, analyze the data, improving your workflow efficiency. For example, it can help you organize your ideas, suggest a clear structure for a report, or turn rough notes into a more coherent draft, or even help you identify patterns in data that you may want to explore it further. It can, I think, also help you to support your day-to-day productivity by helping with, I don't know, meeting notes or action points, planning, communication, etc. So you name it. But after task, you can also use this to refine the final output, check clarity, reflect on what could be improved, or you can even ask it to challenge your arguments, point out any particular gaps that you may have missed in your work, improve the flow of your writing, or even suggest ways to make a presentation more persuasive and more audience focused. So, in that sense, I think AI is not just useful at the beginning of the task, it can really add value throughout the whole entire process. So I think the key is that AI should not really replace your thinking. If any, it should really improve your thinking. You will need to ask, some sort of good questions. Judge the quality of the output, check accuracy, as I said, with the AI and algorithm biases that we are dealing with at the moment, and make sure that the final work reflects your own understanding and perspective. That is really where the real learning, I think, will happen. So in my view, I think the best students will use AI to become more organized, more analytical, and more creative, not just simply faster.
All right. Thanks for that, Ghasem. There's a question from our attendees or our guests to you, Ghasem. How do you see the next stage of the new economy shaping society and individuals? And what impact will AI and robotics have on the future of the labor force?
Yeah, well, that's a really, really important question, and we dedicate one day of our workshop on digital economy on this particular question, really, that how this whole thing is shaping our industry. And I think if I want to, very briefly mention about this, I think a lot of businesses, a lot of traditional businesses will be transforming into what we, refer to as platform business models, and even further on building on platform business model, we are more and more moving towards what we refer to as ecosystems. And if you think about it, the Apple ecosystem, the Google's ecosystem, a lot of these major industries moved and shift away. Even if you think about car industry, the car itself, from solely being a car that manufacturers produce and sell, transited and transformed into becoming a platform business model, wherein we're no longer interested in just selling a car, but really offering a solution to many different sides to the platform. But I'll just stop here on that note.
All right. Thank you, Ghasem. Xavier, back to you, sir. In a world increasingly driven by specialization, what is the true value of a generalist MBA today?
Oh, that's a fabulous question, actually, Joseph. And it is true. Yeah, we see specialization absolutely everywhere. I've got two little ones. They're still in primary school, and yes, they'll do everything from maths to English, to science, to geography, to history. But very, very quickly, as they get into their secondary school, and more so as they get eventually into university, and then as we start getting our own professional careers going, and so on, we get increasingly pigeonholed into something more and more specialist. So whether we first decide to focus perhaps a bit more on the STEM sciences or on the humanities and the arts, and whether within those then we decide to become doctors, whether we decide to become linguists, or whether we decide to work in the world of business, we increasingly get asked to specialize. So sense in business. We become accountants, we become marketing specialists, we become operations managers, what have you. And within those, even more and more and more specialization. Yeah, plenty of educational experiences for you to be able to further specialize, yeah, and to become an expert on pretty much anything you can think of. Yet the MBA does the exact opposite. It takes you away from that specialization, from that funnel that society is bringing you in and is following you out, is actually saying, right, you're already an expert. So how about getting you out of that very narrow pigeonhole that society has really compartmentalized you, or your organization has compartmentalized you in, and get you to think perhaps a bit more holistically, more synthetically, perhaps get that helicopter view that allows you to look at things from above. Someone needs to connect the dots. And ultimately, this is actually what the MBA is trying to do. The MBA focuses mainly on leadership, and it focuses on creating that strategic mindset. In other words, it tries to look at the big picture, whether that is from looking at the organization as a system, as I said earlier, and looking at it from above, or indeed how we go about leading people and carry them to make those decisions that we need the organization to take. This is incredibly important, and the vast majority of our MBAs come with a very specific expertise. As I said earlier, be those accountants, or we might have people that come from banking profession, or people that might come from the engineering with an engineering background. We've got lots of medical doctors, people that come from pharma, project managers, people who come from the military, literally with people from absolutely every single walk of life. But what the vast majority of them have in common, again, is that their organizations, their employers, have basically got to think of them as incredibly good at one very small thing. Yes, they may have got a few promotions here and there, but eventually they reach that glass ceiling that is incredibly difficult to break away from. And that's what the MBA is trying to get them to do. It's get them to see themselves as perhaps more synthetic leaders, as individuals that can actually take that strategic role, perhaps more commercial role, and looking at the organization as a whole, rather than looking at very specific and narrow areas of expertise. And I think the way we actually do it in the MBA is perhaps by placing focus not necessarily only on what we teach our students and what our graduates finish the MBA with, in terms of models, theories, and frameworks, but perhaps more so with the skills that we actually try to build on our students. And I tend to speak about those along the lines of our ability to get our students to better communicate, be that by making better presentations, be that by being able to negotiate better salaries or perform better negotiations in terms of terms for suppliers, with their vendors, with their clients, whether it is to basically perhaps just do better chit chat in a networking event, but also to work with others. Very important. And working with others and trying to collaborate doesn't necessarily mean thinking that we can actually just try to pool resources on equal grounds, but perhaps learning how to delegate, learning how to again persuade others to be able to do what you think is actually right as a leader, is also about trying to build creativity. And here I don't only mean creativity about being able to come up with a great work of art, of course not. Perhaps more being creative in the sense of coming up with completely different ways of doing business, better strategy, or perhaps new business altogether. So in other words, how do you go about generating new innovative ideas? How do you become, in essence, an entrepreneur? quite importantly, being a critical thinker. So we've spoken about, interestingly enough, Tahir was actually speaking about, well, it all starts with evidence and with data. And then what we do is we try to build our experience into it. And then the third step is to bring a bit of intuition. That's in essence taking a very critical view on the way we actually go about things, whether that is preparing better strategy, making better decisions, is in essence the core of what judgment is about. It's also about being able to network with others. The MBA certainly allows you to make a lot of connections with people, literally, as I said earlier, from every single professional walk of life. So you get exposed to completely different functions, industries, cultures, genders, people that think and that look at the world in completely different ways to the way you have done to this stage. And even within your organization, you might be working with cross-functional teams. People from finance might be working with people from ops or marketing, but there's still an organizational way of looking at the world that breaks down completely in an MBA class when you're actually working with people that are coming from absolutely every single background, from every organization, from every single industry. And finally, I think perhaps the most important one is that by building all those skills that I'm speaking about, be those better communication, being able to work with others, being able to become a better networker, more of a critical thinker, by being more creative, ultimately, you can actually become more confident. And this is incredibly, incredibly important. I'm not speaking here about confidence in the sense of being self-assured in your own abilities. It's not about being able to start cracking up jokes in front of an audience of 1,000 people. Yeah, good as this might be, and I'm actually not diminishing the importance of being a self-assured individual. But important as this may be, I think I'm pointing out more to confidence, in the sense as confidence in the future, being positive, being optimistic, really, about the opportunities that exist in change. I was speaking earlier about how leaders today are expected not only to navigate, but to thrive in uncertainty and in a context of ambiguity. And this is incredibly, incredibly important, because it is in a context, it is in environments that are characterized by uncertainty and ambiguity that there is opportunity. There is a lot of opportunity in change. And creating that mindset of optimism that, listen, we should not be fearing uncertainty. We should not be fearing change. Quite the opposite. We should embrace it, because there's a lot of opportunity in it. And this is why we see so many of our graduates to be inspired to change industry, to set up sometimes even their own firms and become entrepreneurs, quite often with people they've actually met in the MBA, simply because they're actually sharing a mindset that we've created throughout our programs. This really, really, really is what an MBA can actually do. So by taking you away from that very specialist, that narrow way of looking at the world, and creating a mindset that gives you that versatility, really, the MBA can actually allow you to thrive in that context of uncertainty. And it's, of course, increasingly important that this is the case, because if we're seeing so much talk about whether this is because of AI or because of changes on geopolitics, and new structures that we see in the world, power seems to be shifting from specific countries to others, or whether it is simply because we start embracing different ways of doing business that are perhaps more authentic, perhaps more ethical, and perhaps more sustainable, then it's incredibly, incredibly important that we remember that versatility is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly crucial here. We're being told constantly that we will most likely have to change our careers a number of times over our lifetime. And this is actually where the value of a generalist qualification comes in. Takes us away from that narrow area of specialism that might no longer be relevant, and it actually brings us at the very heart of a set of capabilities that will allow us to have that adaptability, that agility, that versatility that allows us to embrace whatever change this society brings with it.
Thank you, Xavier. Appreciate that. Well said. They have a question from our attendees, and anyone can be a taker here. Many organizations are becoming more data driven and technology enabled, but transformation still often fails because of culture, governance, and execution. In your view, what capabilities will future leaders need most to successful lead transformation?
I can take that question if you want.
Go ahead, Ghasem.
Yeah. Right. So I think I completely agree. I think that's really a very, very good observation. And I think many transformations do not fail because the technology is weak, but they are failing because the leadership underestimates the culture and the governance. That's absolutely right. So I think, future leaders will need, in my opinion, to have a number of, skills and capabilities above all. Probably maybe 4 or 5 of them that comes to my head. The first one is that I think that they need to have a strategic clarity, which is the ability to, connect transformation to real business value. That I think is really, really important. They also need to be on top of data and AI literacy. They should have enough understanding to ask the right questions, don't sound really silly or incompetent, and not just really rely on technical experts. They need to understand what's going on. And I also think that managers should have the ability to bring people with them, build trust, and reshape the culture. That's also important, to understand the culture and shape it or reshape it if needed. And I also think that they probably perhaps they should be able to govern and have ethical judgment. And that's because technology without accountability create a lot of risk. I mean, think about ChatGPT and all the risks that are involved with development of AI and agentic AIs, and all the conversations that are these days going around accountability of who is really responsible, who should be in charge of all of that. And of course, I think leaders should also have execution capability, and that is turning the vision into redesigning workflow, clear responsibilities, and measurable outcomes.
All right. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Yes, Nada, please go ahead.
Yes. So I just thank you, Ghasem. This is really great in terms of summarizing what future leaders need. But I want to add only one thing to, and connected to what Amin has said earlier about people learning from mistakes, being able to make mistake. And this is very important in today's world where we have so much uncertainty. Like how AI is shaping our work is uncertain, and people need to be able to not only experiment, but also experiment and fail and try again and fail again. And that creating that environment on top of everything that Jason said, what we call psychological safety, creating that environment where everyone feels okay to just like say what they have to say, innovate, come up with idea, make mistakes, and not be judged and not be ridiculed. And that is a foundational element of good culture and what good leaders need to be aware of. And we see that we work on that in the workshop, and we actually tested in one of the workshop when you create that psychological safety even in the classroom, students perform better, way better, and they work in teams way better.
Thank you for that, Nada. Appreciate that. I just have a follow-up question here. It's for Dr. Tahir. How should leaders adapt their decision-making style across different industries and cultures? Doctor.
Thank you, Josan. I think it kind of summarizes all the points we discussed by my colleagues as well. So understanding the priorities, understanding what are the commitments based on the we talked about, when we talked about the great decision makers, we talk about the context in which your decisions are optimized. Context defines certain requirements, defines certain goals. And if you are making decisions to achieve that goal in the best possible way, I think that's the way. There is no one generic, you can say, way of performing. It adapts, and adaptability is one of the skills probably that would help leaders to acquire that, is to understand the changes and to align with them in order to get there, in order to get the results.
If I may, Justin, you're muted again.
Sorry for that. It's automatically going.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, go ahead. Thank you, Tahir. Dr. Ghasem, please.
Yeah, if I just wanted to add one sentence to what my colleague Dr. Tahir mentioned here, and that is, I think that they also need to know how to make good decisions with machines, and that really means that, you know, understanding where AI can add value, where human judgment is still, you know, essential, and where, you know, clear governance is needed. I think that's the combination of skill sets that enable them to, you know, make that call is really, really important.
All right. Thanks for that, for the follow-up for that, Ghasem. Dr. Amin, just one quick question here from our guests, from our attendees. Let me just open it. How do time constraints typically change the quality of financial decision making?
So actually, in a funny sort of way, not enough time to consider will definitely have a negative impact, unless you've been very well prepared. And that's one thing you can do. Sometimes having too much time doesn't help either, because you can get sort of analysis paralysis. People seek to get more and more data, but it doesn't give them any more information, and it doesn't remove the uncertainty altogether. So obviously, but the key lesson from the time constraints is this: if you are clear what space you're operating in, be prepared. If you're in the consumer space, you can't cover all possibilities. If you're working in a part of the world that is subject, now the whole world is subject to geopolitical risk, by the way. I would say since Trump's election, some of the stuff people worried about politically in emerging markets has come to the developed markets. So you have structure, you have your risk, you have your assessments, you prepare ahead of time, which means you allow yourself to make a good decision in a shorter amount of time. Be prepared as a leader to plan for contingencies to look forward. But again, be aware of the fact that there are times when it simply will not be possible to have all the facts at your disposal. But yeah, preparation is the only way. And if you're not prepared, you effectively shorten your time to make decision even more. And that leads to a worse quality of outcome. So being prepared is very important. And yes, if you do things in a hurry, the chances are you probably will not, give the due consideration to your decision.
Yep, preparation is the key then, Dr. Amin. All right, good. Xavier, last question for you. We can only accommodate one more question. My apology. In your experience, where do you think generalist MBA graduates tend to excel the most? I think this is after graduation. In your professional opinion, I would say.
Yeah, I think obviously that generalist education has made them incredibly adaptable. So it is very difficult for me to say, oh, they're going to be excelling or thriving in this particular industry or in this particular function or in this particular culture, because it is in its generality that the MBA is actually preparing you to be very agile and very adaptable, regardless of environment and regardless of circumstances. So we actually see that many of our MBAs actually tend, and sometimes they don't even have to wait until they graduate. We see it quite often that they tend to change company. They tend to change sometimes even function, and many of them actually even tend to change where they work in terms of a country, because they actually have the confidence in their abilities to do so. So it's not so much that I'm going to say it's a specific industry that they will excel at or a specific function that they excel at, but it's in that ability to do something other than what they're used to because of the confidence that the MBA has given them. We actually carried out a survey of the graduates that completed our MBA through our Board of Examiners last October. And interestingly enough, we were asking them many things, from what was it that they valued more about the MBA. And of course, there was the typical questions about, what courses you enjoyed the best, or what ways of teaching you really enjoyed, and what skills you acquired, and so on. But one of the key questions we actually asked them was, how many of you have changed your professional expectations during the MBA? Remember, actually, we were asking people just as they had completed the MBA. It was not 3 years out or a certain period of time after the MBA. No, it was during the MBA. How many of you have changed your expectations about where you'd like to be from a professional standpoint? The vast majority told us that they had changed those expectations. And interestingly enough, not only they had changed their expectations, but the vast majority of our students had actually changed their roles for the better. The vast majority had actually received promotions or had actually changed even the companies where they're working. Some of them had already, even during the MBA, had set up their own businesses. Right? So yeah, I think if anything, that's really, really good testament to the fact that the MBA will actually change the mindset of not only the graduates, but even the students themselves, as they actually apply what they learn immediately. And indeed, as well, quite importantly, that it's at the end of the day all about adaptability and agility. And that shows, again, not just because they say that they feel different, but because they show us that they've been able to make that difference.
Thank you for that, Xavier. Appreciate that. Okay, this will be the last question for everybody. Just to highlight the subject of your expertise in terms of, to your parting words. What is one message you would leave for our future leaders joining us today? Let's start with Dr. Tahir, in connection to what you teach right now. What is one message you would leave for future leaders joining us today?
Thank you so much. I think this is very important to come up with overall understanding. Okay, so I think whatever the leaders, I know all of probably will be working in different environments. So I think what I really want in terms of decision making or in journal in their practice environment is learning agility. So quickly adapting with the new learning as we talk about digital transformation, AI, automation, and the use in terms of augmentation. So how quickly they can adapt new technologies, how quickly they can learn. And I think we have shared a lot, colleagues have shared a lot around learning by making mistakes. So that's absolutely fine. And creating that space of learning, which now they're reflected. So I think that agility to learn quickly and to act and to move forward is something that my message would be.
Thank you, Thank you so much, Dr. Tahir, for accepting our invitation. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Ghasem, for you, sir. Well, some message you would leave for our future leaders joining us today in connection to AI.
Yeah, in connection with what I'm teaching, digital economy, I suppose, right? So I think, if one message I would give to, students is that, in a digital economy, it's do not just learn, the latest tools. Tools will change. What matters more is the understanding that how digital technologies are changing customer behavior, business models, platforms, data, value, and value creation. So that's the bottom line. Don't just hang to what is really becoming fashion. Think deeper and learn where your judgment can make a difference.
Thank you, Ghasem, again for allowing us for you to join us today. We appreciate it, sir. Dr. Amin, for you.
What I would tell everyone is, look, you can run a business without finance. It probably won't do very well and it might die, but you can. There is no such thing as finance without a business. The whole point of finance is to support the economy or trade or a business. So you have two choices. And that's why I'd advocate the MBA. If you're going to be specializing in something that supports business, which is finance, you better be a generalist. because you're going to end up applying that in the context of so many different businesses. And everything to do with finance comes from the core of the business, which brings together the strategy, the marketing, the use of data, everything else. So it's really important. A generalist topic like finance doesn't stand on its own. You need to be aware of everything else in the business, and hence the importance of something like the MBA.
Thank you, Dr. Amin. Appreciate it. Dr. Nada, for you, madam.
Thank you. My message is leadership is measured by impact you have on others, whether you're in the room or you're not in the room. So lead with empathy and lead with integrity, and those two always win.
Thanks, Nada. Great words. Appreciate that. And finally, Xavier Duran, sir, please, your parting words to everybody.
Yeah, I've already commented on the importance of uncertainty and reminding everybody that there's a lot of opportunity in uncertainty. There's a lot of opportunity in change, and then rather than fear it, we should actually embrace it. And obviously, as an MBA director, I'll obviously wax lyrical about it, but it is in our ability really to build that versatility that allows you to thrive in that uncertain environment, really, that you can make the most out of those opportunities that uncertainty brings.
All right. Thank you, Xavier. We hope to see you soon, of course, here in Dubai. Let me just, before we end this tonight, let me just share my slide again, just for a few announcements. One moment. All right. So, for those of you who have joined us tonight, there's more to come with the University of Manchester. Of course, this coming week, we do have the Manchester Open Hour taking place on every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. If you want to learn more about the University of Manchester programs like the MBA in Financial Management, the Global Executive MBA, Executive Education, please scan the QR code. Join us with your experts, program counselor, student support advisor, and career advisor. That's between 4 to 5 p.m. And next week, as we continue the masterclass series, of course, now we'll be outlining, of course, our upcoming masterclass with Dr. Reza about AI and algorithms. This is going to be on April 23rd at 7 p.m., followed by the negotiation skills masterclass from Professor Oscar Gomez on April 30, 7 p.m. Please scan the QR code for more information. And of course, we would love to see you in our social. Please scan the QR code for more information from LinkedIn, Instagram, and of course, review us in Google if possible for more information about the University of Manchester. All right. I hope today's session has given you more than just insights, but real inspiration, greater clarity, and deeper understanding of the people and purpose behind everything we do. A sincere thank you to our distinguished faculty. Thank you all so much for sharing your expertise, and to all of you for your energy, for the curiosity and engagement throughout this conversation. We appreciate your audiences. At the University of Manchester, we believe learning is never a solitary journey. It is shaped through shared ideas, meaningful challenges, and connections that continue well beyond today. As you move forward, stay bold in your thinking, confident in your questions, and intentional in your growth, because your future is already unfolding. And above all, always remember, we are stronger together. On behalf of our founding director, Randa Besizo, and the amazing University of Manchester Dubai team, thank you also with Hussam, my co-host today, who made all of this possible. My name is Jose Ranyola. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and keep safe, and reminding you to always to be that change. Until then, masalama everyone. Thank you.